of a fragmentization somewhat, and
What?
fragmentation, and therefore we wanted to create a seminary which would try to look at the Jewish people as a whole, and just extract the best from the tradition from any part of any denomination.
How can one reconcile the conflict in ideas between the various branches of Judaism? For instance, in Orthodoxy, how there is no need for public worship for women. They're even excluded from public worship. Whereas in conservative or reform, women are welcomed to bless the Torah publicly and even read from the Torah.
In certain areas there is no reconciliation, but what needs to happen is to have a respect for the integrity and sincere motives of the other groups. Pluralism doesn't mean agreeing with the other all the time, but it means at least respecting and trying to understand their point of view and hopefully have them respect you and you respect each other. I don't think there will ever be any reconciliation about certain practices and beliefs.
What is important for us to know about mythology and depth psychology?
Mythology, you could look at the Torah as also a set of myths. By that, we mean not something that's false. That's not the meaning of mythology the way I understand it. It means that it's a set of tales which engage the imagination and allow one to transcend just the literal description of the text. But there are great myths that you find in all traditions, and that's why they continue, because they're telling a truth about the human condition that is very universal. So mythology is a way of explaining the world, either through stories or imaginative tales that reach something beyond the intellect, and you're resonating with something true. So the stories, the creation story in the Bible, you find that same myth in many traditions.
Well, my understanding is that there's two separate creation stories in Genesis.
Yeah, but that's a different topic. But just the general story of creation, why are we here? Why was the world created? That's such an essential question. So myths of the world deal with that.
So that would include stories like the Garden of Eden, the Tree of the Knowledge of Good and Evil.
Yeah, because these stories are an attempt to explain the human condition. Moses' journey to the desert is the myth of the hero's journey. We find that in many different traditions, Ulysses or leaving the secure place, taking a risk, going out to the unknown, discovering the Holy Grail or the burning bush and coming back, returning that to the people. So we have different typical myths that are essential. So Judaism has it too, and I think it's very valuable. Depth psychology just simply means the ability to look beyond just the rational conscious mind to the unconscious, to something that's deeper, something you feel in your body, something or a dream that comes to you, and you're touching on something that you've repressed, that you haven't been dealing with, and it comes back, unconscious to inform you, to help you grow. So depth psychology means to get to the irrational as well as the rational part of the self.
What's most important for us to know about Hillel? All of us who went to college in the United States have been introduced to Hillel in one way or another, but what's most important for us to know about it?
Well, Hillel as a person was a very tolerant, loving person. He's famous for example, when a potential convert came to Shammai and asked him to convert to Judaism, he kind of discouraged him and questioned his motivation, whereas as soon as he came to Hillel, Hillel said, well, there's just one thing that you have to do, and that is, he came to him and he said, teach me the whole Torah on one foot. So Shammai felt, he wasn't serious, and he dismissed him. And Hillel said, what is hateful unto you, don't do to your fellow human being. There's the whole Torah. Go out and study it, So he was always he represents tolerance. Hillel on the college campus also represents pluralism and tolerance for all the denominations, just helping them come closer to Judaism in the way that which is palatable to them. I think it's a very fine, important institution for the Jewish community. The students have to meet a lot of potential clashes with what they're grown up with in a very sophisticated way, and you need something to counteract that on campus.
You told me before I started recording that you're here in Las Vegas to do interfaith work. Can you please tell us about that?
Yes. The Academy for Jewish Religion California is not only a trans-denominational rabbinical cantorial chaplaincy seminary, but it also, in 2010, entered a consortium with Claremont School of Theology and the Islamic Center of Southern California. We created the first desegregated religious training seminary in the United States called Claremont Lincoln University, CLU, based on a $50 million grant that David Lincoln bestowed upon us. The philosophy of it is for each group to maintain its own traditions and to train people the same way they were training them, except to add on courses that students can take in various religions, that a person, a clergy leader in the 21st century, should be able to know the other religions, not to stereotype them, not to be suspicious of them, but to learn about them so the clergy leader in an interconnected world can intelligently enter the other world and teach about our own tradition. Because religion today is stereotyped as a negative force, as a fundamentalist versus progressives fighting because of feeling threatened. And we want to once more portray religion as a progressive, loving entity in this world. And the primary values of each religion are really the same: to elevate the earth, tikkun olam, to allow people to reach their destinies, to find a love for the Creator, and to love your fellow human being. So this is the kind of work we engage in addition to our Jewish studies, to promote harmony between the different religions and to have that image be born into the world.
You just said the words tikkun olam. What does that mean?
Tikkun olam means to repair the world, to work for social justice, to help the oppressed. Wherever you see something you can do of service to improve the world, to elevate it, that you enter into it and do your task there.
I asked that same question of a Chabadnik, and his response was, it only means tshuva, only means repentance for a secular Jew to become observant. Any other application was not correct, he said. What do you think of that thought?
I disagree with that. I don't think that's the common understanding of tikkun. Tikkun means to build, to repair. Olam means the world. So just simply from the translation of that phrase, it means going out and doing something uplifting in the world. And that's the way it is generally understood in common parlance. So the Chabadnik, I think, has a misimpression of it.
When I looked at the paper that you sent me that described the various involvements that you have, the list was really quite extensive. Why so many things?
I'm a person of a lot of energy, and a lot of things attract me, and I've always been interested both in psychology and religion, so I tend to, in my career, I teach at universities, and I also do synagogue work, and right now I'm involved with the academy, so I do whatever energizes me and draws my soul, and sometimes there's a lot of things to do.
Why are you no longer a congregational rabbi?
I was a congregational rabbi for 10 years at Kilat Marav, a conservative congregation in Santa Monica. I was a congregational rabbi at Westwood Village Shul, an Orthodox shul, congregational rabbi in San Luis Obispo for a couple of years. I do love congregational work, but I think my temperament is more in academia, to share intellectual thoughts, and I have a tendency not to like to sit around a lot. I loved the work on the weekend, giving drashot, sermons, teaching, counseling people, but sitting in the office during the week and coming in every day and repeating that, eventually I get a little bored with it. Board work, B-O-A-R-D, can be taxing. It's a wonderful job to be a synagogue rabbi. You get a chance to help a lot of people and teach a lot of people and represent ideas in the community. But I wanted to change at that point. I wanted to go back to academia to influence students so they can go out and do other things.
Multiply your efforts.
Yeah. So I have nothing against it, except I felt I did that successfully and I wanted to try something else.
You have an Orthodox ordination and have worked at 2 conservative and 1 Orthodox congregation. Can you tell us where your heart lies as regards the various movements?
I love the positive dimensions in each of the movements. Like some of my colleagues, we sometimes have a split between our intellect and our hearts. My heart, I think, is in the Orthodox movement because I grew up there and is what I'm used to, and I like the kavanah, the intensity of the prayer, and the communal feeling of responsibility and commitment. But intellectually, some of the beliefs and some of the emphases do not resonate with my mind, so my mind prefers sometimes some of the philosophies found in the conservative movement, which is tradition and change, living more in the present and moving the halacha along because new conditions have been created. So there's a little bit more flexibility, dynamism, and creativity that's available there. But I wouldn't say I dislike any of them. They each have their place. I just don't like to be boxed into one because I don't feel totally at one with either of them.
So if I dropped you in any town with a significant Jewish community, Sacramento, Philadelphia, wherever, someplace with a significant community, but you don't really know anybody, what kind of congregation would you seek out? It's Friday afternoon, you're getting ready for Shabbat, who would you seek out?
If I want to really dive in intensely, I might go to an Orthodox shul, I would have to get to know each of the shuls to see which I would feel most comfortable. My experience has been that sometimes the conservative prayer experience is not as intense as the Orthodox one. When I come to pray, I want intensity. If you ask me which lecture would I like to go to, or which drasha, it could be that I may prefer a non-Orthodox synagogue.
Of all the ways you're of service to the community, besides the ones we've discussed, could you pick 1 or 2 or 3 that stand out as being most important to you?
I was once on the homeless task force in Santa Monica for a few years. That was very meaningful work. I like to counsel people. I'm a therapist as well. I like to help people who are searching for their identity. They may be depressed and yet able to bring out their potential. Sometimes marital couples who don't know how to communicate in a healthy way with each other. I worked when I was in New York, in Ocean Hill, Bronzeville, and Washington Heights. I had a Ford grant to try to promote harmony in the community between different ethnic groups. One task was in George Washington High School, where black students were angry that one of their teachers were fired, and they set up a table of protest, and then the white families were angry at the black families. So I had to go in and try to do a lot of listening and try to transmit what each one is saying to the other. To mediate and sit down. I like that kind of work. I felt it improved. One summer I worked in Ocean Hill, Bronzeville, where I was an evaluator of work agencies for youths over the summer to give them a good working experience and to give them some money in impoverished environments. And I enjoyed evaluating the sites, improving them so that they indeed got a good working experience instead of just getting paid for doing nothing and just taking money off the table but not really developing character that was fulfilling. So the kind of service